All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jay's Corner. My name is J.O. I am the author of the published book, Maximize Your Medicare. I'm also an Alliance in Education Fellow at the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I clearly still need to get the marbles out of my mouth. We'll go quickly here today. Be sure to like and subscribe to Jay's Corner here on YouTube. There's also a Maximize Your Medicare channel for those people looking for specific information about Medicare. Two channels, and we'll get into it. Let's just get started. So, on our agenda today, I'm going to try to go quickly as usual, try to keep it within the hour. We got a new website, and here it is. It's jo.com. There's many reasons that I created this website, but I thought to unify, to tie together the central messages of Jay's Corner plus all the other activities that I am involved with. There's a little bit about me, etc. You know, I work with individuals and families as well as professional groups. I have stated already that I'm going to be a presenter. For example, next coming up is going to be that I'm going to be at the FPA, which is Financial Planning Association annual conference in Columbus, Ohio. Wolverine goes into Buckeye territory in the coming months. I'm busy preparing for that, even though, it shouldn't take too long, but fairly prominent, or that's what they tell me, whoever they is. Anyway, let's just continue here. I wanted to point out the website very briefly is that this is the important section for viewers, which is what I think about my work, which is, it ties together the central messages for people from every background. Money's complicated. Money has a naming problem. And that naming problem leads to misinformation or whether under information, too much information, word salad. We're going to get to a very good example of word salad later here today. And in addition to that, how I generally think about my work, which is that I'm always a fiduciary. It doesn't matter. You could send us an email about dental insurance. We're going to make sure that you get the best price for the plan, the benefits that you are seeking. Period. End of story. To be candid with you, we have a lot of news, crossfire noise about financial guidance people, doing this rightly or wrongly. We're going to get into that as well later today. But basically, the bottom line is this to me is not even a discussable point. It's the same thing if you were my sister or my two beloved sisters or my mother. The end. It's just obvious. Plan first, solutions follow. And part of this is because of the fact that since money has a naming problem, what ends up happening is people get tied up in the naming of whatever plan, policy, jargon. I'm like, look, let's just figure out what the answer we are seeking is. Find what you are seeking, detail it, articulate it to me. The name of the solution will follow. And I just use your common sense. Just use your common sense, right? Which is the sellers of this stuff, whatever it is, soup, gum, noodles, doesn't matter. If the demand exists, they will figure it out. They are the highly motivated with unlimited computing power, unlimited legal resources. They'll figure it out. My job is to attach the two. Last, what you don't get here. I don't think you see this anywhere in Jay's Corner, right? Philosophy and politics simply are not part of the equation. I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't be a Marxist or an anarchist. I'm not here to tell you the philosophy of what I think government life should be in American life. That is just simply not part of the solutions. I put it to you very simply, rhetorically. Just think. I defy you to name any application. Dental insurance, Medicare, health insurance, life insurance, where there's a tick box to ask you what political party you belong to. Simply not part of the price. For that, hopefully you'll get something from it. Jo.com, telling you about what I do, and we'll have some more on that, of course, later. And then if you want to reach out to me down there. There you go. Okay, let's just talk about money logic for newcomers. And there's the cliche. I try not to use cliches too frequently because I find them tired. But time is money, and speed kills, absolutely. And here's your everyday example. So, while I'm doing my work over here, I got another computer over here, and I'm like sitting there watching YouTube, and then there are chess tournaments. And anyway, I thought to show you this to give you an idea, right? So you're talking about chess tournaments where you're talking. What ends up happening is you have rating system, and it's a numeric one. Well, in Norway this past week, we had it here. And to give you an idea about the quality of players here, you can see it here. This is two Chinese players playing against the other, and look down at the bottom.
June is playing a perfect game of chess. She's played 100% accurate.
This is the first time we have 100% for someone.
So you can see it right there. To that caliber, people are sitting at this tournament, right? And so there are machines which are evaluating the play while they're playing. Okay, so even with that context in mind, to give you an idea, this can happen. And here it is.
But highlighting that to just provide some, I guess...
Whoa! Of the Countess Gambit! She's not the queen! Oh, no! Oh, the Piacronin brothers are queen! The square...
Grandmaster for decades, under duress, under time pressure, makes a mistake, and in a single move, the game is over. And for that, the connection point to money is simply that time isn't necessarily your friend. I don't have this idea, and you can see it here, that in every single framework, no exception, when we are considering the value of anything, you always have big T. Always. There are no exceptions to this. And the further it goes out, that time is always a factor. And for that, this is why I continue to publish, I continue to make videos and have marbles in my mouth. I get all of that. But that's your central theme. Time's not really your friend. It can work for you if you are well prepared and well informed. The flip side of that same coin also exists, which it punishes you if you do not. I could have, I would have, I should have. These things are expensive errors to make when it comes to money. Expensive. And I want to make one last point here, which is then we will get to markets understanding shortly, which is in financial terms, this didn't matter as much as little as 3 years ago. And simply why? Because R was so low. It's not low any longer. All you have to do is change this from 0.5 or 0.015 and now 0.045. And now you will get way different answers on the left-hand part of that equation. Meaning that the value of waiting has become more expensive here. Stuff to keep in mind. Okay, speeding right along here. Let's just get to where I'm trying to go. So, paid subscribers. You get your free entry into the Maximize Your Medicare. Yes, planning has begun already for the autumn, which is that I'm going to be presenting Medicare, the full nuts and bolts. What is not in advertisements, what is even points that are not in the book, because candidly speaking, stuff has changed. So absolutely stick to the information and the principles, the ideas in Maximize Your Medicare. Absolutely. That part is true. That said, the underlying factors can change They will change. And we're going to get to that now, which is, I titled this is Yahoo Finance, trolling me. And one thing that I can say notably, and it's one of the first few times I'm going to bring it up, which is I spend a lot of time when I scrolling like most people on my phone, looking up at headlines. Maybe my headlines that I look at are different than yours. That what I end up saying is that, I've kind of already talked about this. That's the candid reality. And here's the article. Oh, actually, do I even have the article? Yes, here it is. Here's the article here. So this article is centered on the idea that, they're talking about the stocks. The stocks, Humana, CVS, which owns Aetna, United Healthcare, 3 very large carriers. WellCare is another one, for example. I can't remember their owner off the top of my head here, which is that you're going to see things about the stocks. Anthem, certainly, which is now Synchrony. So anyway, what you have here is, a stock analysis dominated by equity market, outlooks, if you will. See if I can blow this up for you. So here's my point here is that just the other day, what ends up happening on Medicare Advantage and Part D, there's a proposal process, there's a deadline. That deadline was this past week. And now what you have here is I have made points in Maximize Your Medicare here on the newsletter, here on the channel about the fact that this is a very, very complicated soup, and 2025 is going to be very challenging. And here it was right here. This is literally what I said last week. Literally. This is a copy of what I said last week. Medicare mess in 2025. Yep. That what you saw here is my 2 points, and here it is right here, which is that almost certainly a mess. That the CEOs have warned you, that the Inflation Reduction Act has created this great thing for people with high-cost medications. The issue is how to make the money work, how to make the money fit. I've described the idea that Medicare Advantage Part D are receiving, in effect, an allowance, air quotes, an allowance, just for your understanding. That allowance can be tweaked based off a couple of things, which is part of the minutia, the crossfire and headlines that you see around Medicare Advantage. In addition to that, there are some other moving parts here. And some of this may be known or not by you, depending on whether or not you're affected. Wegovy covered now for hypertension. So weight loss, you don't get to use Wegovy and be covered by Medicare because you feel like losing a spare 15 pounds. That will not work. However, if you suffer from hypertension, then Wegovy can be prescribed to you. The question is going to be whether or not these are popular medications, right? Ozempic, right? Wegovy, for example, right? So you've got 2 big weight loss drugs getting most of the news, and you can see it on commercials. Just flick on your TV for 3 minutes. That how they get covered, given the fact that there are rules on Medicare Advantage and Part D, how they fit these expensive medications into the plans, whether or not they're going to be listed on the plans when they're this popular by the consuming public, becomes an open issue. And so now what you have is you've got this. I realized that I didn't have the audio for the chess. Anyway, that what you have is you've got these complications. And oh yeah, by the way, the federal government has given doctors a pay cut, which is still in effect as we speak. So you have pressures on every stakeholder. It's not only you. It feels like you, right? You're the person, you're the beneficiary, you're the person who has to roll up to the counter at your pharmacy. I get that. That said, all the pieces, including me. And here it is, the point that I made yesterday, or last week, which is, I'm also affected. And I'm bummed out. Not financially. not financially, but it's because of this point down here, right here, which is that as a result, for certain plans, I'm not going to be paid at all. Now, this creates certain professional risk here that I simply cannot afford, right? I told you about the other different affiliations that I have, right? And one, very notable one here at the Alliance for Lifetime Income. We'll talk about that in a few moments. But the point is that I have to retain the regulatory risk, right? For $0. Now, it doesn't matter what business it is. It simply does not. There's no business that works this way and sustains itself. What ends up happening is the intermediary just backs out. So we're going to have to make difficult choices. I've already said to people that you'll have to be a paid subscriber to Jay's Corner if you want me to take a look at your Part D plan for 2025. I can't get around that as far as I can see. I've not yet seen the details for 2025, but I very strongly suspect that to be the case. So I'm in this weird spot, and this is not a pity party, right? Which is, I want to do the right thing, of course, obviously. Maybe not so obvious, but yes, absolutely. And yet also, even for the small, this thing is less than $50 a year last year, for years, to give you an idea. So even that small amount, though, $1 pays for the attachment point of my duty to you, my fiduciary duty, which I've already pointed out here, right? As well, in combination with the fact that I have regulatory risk. That is the quid pro quo. But since there's $0, then you can see the uncomfortable spot. We're still grappling with that. Nevertheless, like I said, is that when I said here that look a lot like Jay's Corner, you're going to, what I strongly suspect is the fact that you're going to have other people, and that you saw this, which is the impact on me. And just like clockwork, literally less than an hour ago, I looked online and bang, here it is. Which is that the go-betweens. I've talked about Jimmy Walker commercials, right? And I got nothing against Jimmy Walker, don't know him, right? But the point is that what happens is when you call one of these 1-800 numbers, you're calling a middleman. And that middleman may or may not transfer the call to someone that's not part of Jimmy Walker's firm. And they are selling that. So I could purchase that, right? In other words, that is possible. I don't, but, my counterpart certainly can. The problem is that the CMS is trying to shut this down. Why? Because now you've called somebody, you get connected to someone, you don't know it. You don't know that you're not talking to Jimmy Walker's firm anymore. The person just says, okay, can you hold on? I'll get one of our specialists on the line. And then you get transferred. Well, I've already highlighted the fact that the regulations for 2025 are, in theory, supposed to stop this practice without you knowing and agreeing, and a waiting period. So, of course, the makers of the commercials are like, whoa, wait a minute. Now I can't sell my transfer ability to Jay's counterpart. In doing so, it cuts off the commercial maker. And now you can see they're trying to sue the federal government. Now, good luck to them, right? I don't know, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm certainly don't have a crystal ball, right? But this is in general what this thing is saying, right? Which is that they're trying to cut off money to these groups that are selling the leads, selling the transferability of your phone call. And I know I'm cutting corners, so if you're like a health insurance attorney and want to throw a rock, I'm doing this so that people can understand. This is a very complicated soup, right? As I've stated in the past, it is why I wrote Maximize Your Medicare in the way that I did, right? I said, look, you cannot get away from the idea of your understanding that Medicare Advantage is annual contract. That means every detail, and I mean every, is subject to change on an annual basis. It has happened to work hugely in the consumer's favor. That is true. That is true. Why? The government has simply given more money to Medicare Advantage carriers so that it could enroll people into Medicare Advantage. Even the government had reason to do so. And that, candidly, is to push down the overall cost of the healthcare system. The way to do that is to control the allowance. And you can see it, right? You want to control your adolescent child? You tweak the allowance. Of course you do, right? Get better grades? Get an extra $5. Get worse grades? Minus $5. Obvious. In the same way, this is what's going on here. Makes sense. Why? Because the government doesn't have endless amounts of $100. More people will turn 65 in 2024 than at any year in U.S. history. This year and next year are the absolute height of the number of people that will turn 65. I can tell you by our website traffic for MaximizeYourMedicare.com that has to be true. We are seeing that, absolutely. So, your takeaway here is that we are going to see this mess in 2025. That is true. Yahoo Finance, and I'm just poking fun at them, right? Which is that they're reporting stuff that followers here on Jay's Corner already know very, very well. I've already told you this. I've sent this out on emails. There's no other. I'm not splitting atoms here. I'm not making heroic predictions. I don't have a crystal ball. What I do have, however, is a knowledge about the inner workings and how they're setting the price. For people who don't know, I have been on the writing end on financial products far more complicated than Medicare Advantage. Far more complicated. That said, the connection points were similar. Math of money, of course. Computing power, of course. Access to legal documents and those firms, advocacy firms, i.e. law firms, at very expensive prices to make sure that their rules are established and followed. The idea that the carriers are violating the contracts that they write, no, right? And if you're disputing, okay, well, it's not supposed to work that way, that's not fair, that's these panels. Now you can understand why I created jo.com, right? Because now what ends up happening is people are conflating. They're mixing up the fact that they don't understand how something works with somebody's to blame. It must be politics or philosophy. That is a different topic. I'm trying to keep them separate for each other so people can keep their cool, use their common sense to get the solution that they are trying to get for themselves. Let's continue. Out of Medicare to pre-Medicare. So Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is a very good example of what I've stated here. Right up here. Money has a naming problem. Right? Which is, and you'll remember the famous Jimmy Kimmel segment, right? Oh, I love the Affordable Care Act, no pre-existing conditions clause, I have diabetes. Oh, that same person saying, yeah, I hate Obamacare. Okay, meaning Those are the same thing for those people who are underneath, who have lived in the current eventscape. Those are the same thing. Don't get me wrong, this is not an unadulterated compliment to the 44th president who sold the Affordable Care Act as health care when in fact it was a tax. Something that I'm very sure he knew was not passable. Okay, so let's not give him like just all the flowers, right, for that. No, I don't say that. It's more even handed than that. It's a tax. It was always a tax. They called it something else in order to get it passed. Okay. Sorry if you opposed it from the beginning. You were so poorly disorganized. You got the L. You earned the L, right? You were so badly organized. You couldn't come up with a strategy, a platform as an alternative, a workable one. That is more than a decade ago. We still don't have a viable substitute, by the way. More than a decade. More than a decade. Okay, so this is why I'm saying we need to get away from, you can see the combination. Money's naming problem, add this, add this on top, and now what do you have? You have a world full of people who don't have a full handle on what they should. Anyway, that all said, I don't want to say that criticisms of the financial guidance industry, whoever, whatever they're calling themselves, insurance broker, blah, blah, specialist, advisor, this, that there can be instances of wrongdoing. And what was shocking to me over the past couple of months was the fact that this is occurring when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. And so I'm going to point out this article. I wonder, yes, here it is. So this is a Substack, another version, which is not Jay's Corner, right? A person who's called Andrew Sprung, ex post factoid. There it is up there. Excellent. So first of all, excellent. So shout out to him. Nerdy. I'm calling it nerdy. Put it that way, right? But what he's pointing out is the fact that there is fraud in the ACA, which is just heartbreaking and disappointing to me. Disappointing is probably the best word for it. And you can see it here, which is the KFF, which they renamed it from Kaiser Family Foundation to just pure KFF. And here on Jay's Corner, I should just call it the corner. Anyway, here on the corner, what ended up happening is I have pointed out that KFF is top of class. Stick with that. That said, it's imperfect. And when they try to engage in clickbait, I torch them with a Bunsen burner because they've earned it. I don't want people to come in to have the wrong takeaway, the wrong narratives, and infuse or tilt into this stuff. They called Medicare Advantage a trap. It's not a trap. You didn't understand the rules that we were playing chess. It's just not a board of 64, symmetric squares. Sorry. They called it a trap. Anyway, here's the original KFF. ACA plans being switched without enrollees okay. This is pretty shocking. April 2nd, Julie Appleby is actually the person that I flamed in the past. So she gets her flowers here. I try to be even-handed here on the corner. So generally speaking, like I said, KFF Health News, the top of class, absolutely. It and Commonwealth Fund, the top of class, and probably distinguishing itself slightly now. So this is not a negative, but this is a very, very crazy. Some consumers covered by Affordable Care Act insurance plan are being switched from one plan to another without their express permission, potentially leaving them from unable to see their doctors or fill prescription. This I didn't know could exist. I didn't know how. I will say I have seen or heard of one instance myself personally. An existing client, I won't give you the name. I never release names without their permission in advance. An existing client told me, I'm in this plan. I didn't agree to this plan. I'm like, what? And so what we discovered was the person had been switched from plan 1 to plan 5 without the client knowing. I'm like, what? Did you give the agent at that time your password? And it's like, no, I don't think so. And so this was some time had passed, and now you could see unauthorized, and now it comes out a couple years later. You could see Miss Appleby also swerving out of her way to make the point that I did, which is the ACA is also known as Obamacare. Naming problem. Say the ease rogue agents can get into the policy accounts in 32 states plays a major role in the problem. Wow. I made some allusion to it. I had a short segment about this a few weeks ago, I want to say, here on the broadcast, which is that rogue agents getting into policy accounts in 32 states. I can't believe it. Armed with only the name, date, and state, a licensed agent can access coverage through the federal or its direct exchange programs. Okay. So I don't know how they do this. I guess I can imagine if they clicked around how. Maybe. I don't even know what the pathway is. So can this happen? The answer is yes. Apparently it's the case. And like I said, I have a single instance where I have seen this myself. Let me move this here because... and there's a reason that here on the corner, that's going to stick, even though that you may think that's a bad habit, is you see that in the information below my talking head right now is a bunch of stuff. Opinions are my own. Today's not financial advice. You see a toll-free number. You see a bunch of, you've got a new link now. And what you have is my NPN down at the bottom. NPN is the National Producer Number. It is a unique number that I have on a nationwide basis. They're the registry for it, right? In other words, if there's any insurance matter, health insurance matter, life insurance matter, annuity matter, I have to attach this number and proof as evidence that I have a license. So the reality is, and this is what I talk for everyday people, audience, professionals, whoever you are, that's fine. Shutting down fraud is most easily done if you get an unsolicited phone call, unsolicited approach by simply asking them, tell me what your NPN is. This big number, this 8-digit number down at the bottom. That person has to, if that person hesitates or doesn't want to share it with you, that should tell you something. Right? Which is that, hey, this person who must have it in order to conduct business and is that certain of the fact that they are not going to be violating regulations, they should be freely willing to share that with you. In fact, you can see it right there. I'm that certain. And I'm not here to tell you how other people conduct their business. To be candid with you, I don't really go in social circles or professional circles that often. You know, I've probably like 3 posts on LinkedIn or something like that. Not very many. Probably going to have to increase it as we come into the FPA. But my point here is that, is this occurring? I don't think there's any question. These are qualified sources here. This is another qualified source who is not part of the media, right? And you can see here is not moving it fast enough, and the commercial web brokers, this exists. I mentioned this to you, that there's a way that you can create these sites. Health Sherpa is the biggest. Okay, we use Health Sherpa. That does not mean, even if the technology exists, the agent of record, we would have to actively do something in order to switch your plan. Now, I can tell you that's never happened over here without express permission that I record or is on email that never gets deleted. As I said to you, I am the highly regulated. And it also tells you the following, which is, since I have this access, I'll correct it myself. Meaning, here it is for you, and it costs $0. Which is, if you think you're the victim of this matter, the email is there. info@gh2benefits.com. I won't charge you for it. We'll get to the bottom of it, fix it. Meaning that I think that you're going to be able to find a way to correct the problem if you suspect this has occurred. You may have had some like mid-year change or some other change to your bill which doesn't match the letter you received from your carrier. It's fixable. The rights will be in your favor. It's the least that I could do here because, to be candid with you, I'm disgusted. And in addition to that, candidly speaking, this makes my job harder, right? Because, excuse me, I have no problem with people being skeptical. None, right? You should be careful. I'm all for that, right? In other words, part of the reason that we have the corner, the newsletter, the YouTube channels, is so that you can gain comfort. That I'm sitting over here rolling off the top of my head with no time to create a script, certainly very little polish, which is that, okay, that you can use your common sense and say, okay, is this person out there just like being a gas bag, or is he the uber qualified? I'll let you decide on that one. Okay. Pretty good. 37 minutes. We're going to make the hour. We're going to make the hour. So, as I've stated, I am an education fellow at the Alliance for Lifetime Income. Protectedincome.org is the website. We're getting to financial markets, and here's kind of your transition into it. Okay. And the point here, and the reason tying together, and let's just go it here, right, which is that it's not here. Yeah. So basically, why do I talk about healthcare cost planning? It's because, very simply, I'm trying to help people understand how much stuff costs. And here it is. Brian from Corbridge, excellent presenter here during this forum.
Bringing it back to being individualistic for each person. And I think if you take the retirement income story versus annuity or other language, right, make it about them. So if I'm sitting down with my financial advisor and I'm discussing what my retirement wants to, I want my retirement to look like, the first thing I have to understand is what's in the cost.
Exactly. Right, which is that I would explain a lot of the crisis. I don't like the word crisis. Crisis is when, the Michigan starting quarterback, tears his ACL. That's a crisis. Okay. This is not a crisis. Crisis for me is that people are uninformed and as a result locked in fear as a result of the fact that they know they don't know what they're supposed to. They know it. Something in the back of their spidey sense tell them, I'm supposed to know something about this. And they don't get the information. Maybe it's not accessible. Maybe they're, don't like me, so they don't watch the channel. That's fine. But if you do, like, subscribe, and share with your others, of course. I'm terrible at self-promotion. But my point is here, and this is excellent. He was very well stated during this, which is to say, look, how much does it cost on an individual level? Well, now you can understand why I spend so much time talking about these topics. Because number one here, right, when you are sick, you don't go openfidelity.com. You do not. I am very, right, I'm not necessarily like a PhD in human behavior. I'm pretty sure this is not what happened. This is not, you do not go, oh, I feel terrible, I've got to go to the hospital, but let me first check fidelity.com. That is not what your spouse does. That is not what your family member does. No, they don't ask for your, hey, dad, what's your brokerage balance? No, that's not what happens. But what we have is an information crisis where, like as stated here, which is that since people don't know how much things cost, they're worried. So as a result, you don't have certain licenses to spend. A phrase that I've used on multiple occasions. Right? And because of that, what you end up having is you then have this combination of stuff. And one of those things is the fact that we've had this idea of a three-legged stool. In that three-legged stool, what you have is you've got these three sources here of where the money is supposed to originate, which is fine. But then what ends up happening is, and the reason you need these three stools is because you need to pay for stuff in cash. Well, that presumes that you know how much it costs. And since now you can see layer upon layer of complications here, and you can see even here, and the issue here is this.
Importance of the mission of the Alliance for Lifetime Income, and that really connected to what we view very much as a very significant retirement issue. And we feel as an industry that we can really support improving and really providing some solutions. So let me just pull a couple of points together that you all have heard today earlier. So the first thing is that when individuals now are thinking about or contemplating their retirement, and recognizing that we had historically had DB plans, individual savings, and also Social Security.
In other words, the three-legged stool that I've spoken about just a few moments ago.
And for most Americans, the DB savings has gone away. And although they have the option of a defined contribution plan, and we are also in the retirement business here, that if you look at the ability to really build your own retirement portfolio within a DC construct, the accrued savings over time may or may not be sufficient. And you heard that a lot of it depends on equity market performance.
Okay, let's stop. So, part of, a very important part, is the fact that things get important issues. I don't want to overstate that, everything that I say is important. That issues are that things get glossed over. And what you have here, you can just even hear, this is the CEO of Lincoln Financial, right? So first of all, thank you very much to the sponsors, the highest end of sponsors we have at the Alliance. So thank you very much. You can see that, at this conference here, at this press conference here, you have Alliance for Lifetime, which is the logo there in the lower left. And that's where I'm the education fellow, as you can see there underneath my name, which is the fact that the biggest of the carriers know that this is an issue, right? And we are not, and it's a nonprofit. Even though they are selling ultimately through their brokers or, I'm a representative. Well, I'll represent these plans as if they're gum. Like I said, I'm a seller of gum. I'm a seller of noodles, right? The only prop I've got today, right? I'm not here to tell you which noodle you want. I am here to say, okay, if you want that noodle, then we'll find out what the right packaging for. Oh yeah, by the way, plans for it. The specific solution follows. Everything ties together. I'm pretty careful about being consistent. My point here is that back to my real punchline is you can see what she just said.
Plan, and we are also in the retirement business here, that if you look at the ability that really build your own retirement portfolio within a DC construct, the accrued savings over time may or may not be sufficient. And you heard that a lot of it depends on equity market performance.
And this is the concern. Is that she just glosses over this fact, oh yeah, well, it deals with equity market return. And that's fine. That's fine-ish under the assumption that equities are straight up. Right? Which is glossing over the point. And this is, candidly speaking, something I would not do. Meaning that I need to stop right there and say, okay, are you aware that this is what you're doing? And that all the narratives that you get are sitting here on this presumption right before you get out of the starting gate. Now, you're 27, you're going to ride the up and down. No problem. You're 50, you're 55, your career's threatened by AI. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're not adopting it, whether you know it, it is going to be threatened. Right? If you don't adopt, no question. My point here, I guess that's my one philosophical statement, I guess, right? So not entirely but that's just the way that I think that the world, is going to evolve, right? That's not my philosophy. But my point here is that even CEO of one of the largest financial companies has just said, hey, well, Mr. X, he just kind of blew this off here, that you can just, yeah, this all works because one of these stools you presume to be straight up. And for that, the reason that has worked, right, for me, and this is what I am trying to say here on the corner, I think it's stuck now, I'm going to keep calling it the corner, is back to here. Is that R has been basically zero with coordinated central bank operations to push it down and keep it down. That works when China is the exporter of deflation, which it is no longer. Right? As I said, I've come to a crazy portfolio of people. I call myself in the newsletter, I'm the Forrest Gump of finance. One is I'm sitting in the other side of the planet talking to economics professor. And rhetorically, he says to me, what do you think the biggest export of China is? I said, well, 1.7 billion consumers, they increased the velocity of money. He said, yeah, that's true. Whew, didn't get an F on the spot. What he said is they've exported deflation because in the rush for 1.7 to go from 1.7 billion, that is 5 times the United States, by the way, 5x. In the rush from them to go from fifth world economy to first world economy, the wages went down in order and kept them down compared to the rest of the planet. So as a result, what you had is lower inflation. Well, now guess what? Now China's not fifth world. My point here, and now you can see we're getting to the point, I promise you, is you can see the glossing over that occurs here, right? And now we're going to get to markets update. So Friday, we had everyone back to work, right? We had jobs news. Market reacted. Here we go. Today's not financial advice. You can see this spike right here. 14 basis points or so, right? In denominator space, this is not small. This is R increasing by point, right? So it went from 0.043 to 0.0433. It's a lot, right? Because out here, you're to the 10th power in 10 years. That's a big number. Big. This goes back to, like I said, I don't like cliches. $1 today is worth more $1 in 10 years, especially when interest rates are high. Especially when interest rates are high. $1 today is worth much more than $1 in 10 years. True. And it affects price of everything. This is a generic NPV, right? Meaning your rental property, a stock, a bond, doesn't matter. Because it assigns the opportunity cost for having money in some risky asset. You've invested in my brass elephant, or you've invested in US government bonds. And maybe I could have been, hey, my brass elephant is priceless. It's going to keep going up in price, even though, I can't sell it for $5 on the street. I have faith. Yeah, but I locked up the money, at which point I should have been making, as you can see on your screen there, 4.43 a year. And this is the opportunity cost. And now we're to today's observations, which is that this whole thing, right? Should I buy a government bond? Should I buy my brass elephant as a, sentimental item, and but who I want to sell? Not that sentimental. Sentimental because, I like money more than this. Which one's a better investment? Well, there's a formal term for that, for you money jacks out there. And this is called the equity risk premium. There it is. So the equity risk premium here is at the low, right? Which is that people are demanding less return of my hypothetical holding compared to risk-free asset, which is the US government bond, which we know for sure if you bought one today and it redeemed in 10 years and held it, put it into a coffee can, put it into the ground, out would come 4.43%, yes, in dollar terms. And so now you can see it, right? I've just described to you what you do every day. Should I buy this, or should keep it for a rainy day and buy something because a better model will come out tomorrow? Right? Okay, so I know this car is getting old, but the new model is going to go 10 miles an hour faster with 5 miles better gas mileage. But guess what? Between now and then, I got to drive around in my jalopy. You're weighing these pros and cons all the time. In equity markets, this is called the equity risk premium. You math jocks out there, or someone who graduated, from the 5th grade, have seen this. And here it is. Y equals mx plus b. Because now in what you have in M is the juice, and ultimately that this comes down to, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Right? Is the risk worth the fact that your trade-off is now 4.43 when it used to be, I don't need to remind you, maybe I do need to remind some of you, all the way down to 1.12. Way different. The entire trade-off of equities versus bonds is different. Has to be. Right? Because why? You've used your common sense. You go, oh, you know what? Okay, I was only going to get 1%. Oh, I like the elephant more than the 1%. Now all of a sudden I get 4%. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait. Over 10 years, that's 30 extra percent in total return space, 10 times the difference between one and more than that. Yes, I've taken compounding risks, so if you're a bondolero, I know that I've taken this shortcut. But you can see which one is the better trade-off is now different. Do you think that I'm the only person to point this out? Well, first of all, you know that cannot possibly be the case. There are articles written on it. The biggest investors in the world are scanning the globe, going, okay, is the juice worth the squeeze? Real estate, gold, private equity, unlisted securities around the planet. And it makes common sense. If you're the Government Investment Corp of Singapore, and they want to call and ask about what that particular investment, guess who's going to pick up the phone? Everybody. Right? Norway Oil Fund calls. Guess who's picking up the phone? Goldman Sachs, the phone's not ringing twice. I promise. It isn't. Neither are you. Right? It's not only the biggest institutions in the world. This is also you. You need to think about this as a construct, and here is the way it goes. And now you can understand why I'm this fired up. This was 2 weeks ago, right? This was 2 weeks ago. It took me. I wanted to just fire off TikTok right here to blast this person. Just listen.
CEO Adam Parker, Kristen Bitterly of Citi Global Wealth, and Joe Terranova of Vertus Investment Partners. Joe's a CNBC contributor. It's good to have everybody here. Adam, what's this about? Is this about that hotter data this morning, that jump up in rates, and we're reassessing things, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's hotter everywhere. It's hotter. It's 100 degrees where we're sitting. It's 90 degrees outside, and there's a little bit hotter econ data. So I guess the, people's rate path once again changed. Look, what I've been doing in my meetings this week is saying three things. And one is don't waste your time trying to make 2-week market calls. Two is don't waste your time trying to make interest rate calls. And three is don't talk to me about like equity risk premium.
What? What are we talking about here? Okay, so don't talk to me. Remember I told you earlier in today's broadcast about word salad, right? What ends up happening is that even here, right, these people are looking for ratings and eyeballs, clicks, right? That's fine. I'm not saying this person is dumb. No, right? Congratulations to him. He's got his place here. I'm sure this is all good. He has a platform. That's fine. But he just basically said, hey, don't ever consider any of this. There's a problem, right? Because what it has done is it leaves you with the wrong impression. Because he left out some words here, right? Which is that the stuff that he left out here is, I find it very hard to believe it. Don't talk to me about the equity risk premium. Okay, so first of all, he's dignified the equity risk premium. Right? If I really don't want to talk about something I don't think that they know what they're talking about, guess what? They get no mention. So you can see that I'm pretty ticked off. Right? It's taken 2 weeks. Don't talk to me about the equity risk premium. Even though this is, common sense. Oh yeah, by the way, the biggest investors in the world are looking at it. So guess what? Right? Doesn't matter if the dumbest guy in your neighborhood, can't spell cat if you gave him the C and the T. If he's buying up all the houses on your road, guess what? The price is going higher. The end. In the same way, the largest investors in the world are looking at the world in this way. And this person is saying, no, disregard them. What I suspect he left out is the fact that you're not necessarily using this as the day-to-day measure about how the market is going to go. Okay, and that's the really, really, really nice version. Max benefit of the doubt. Max. Because I don't like to say that the person is like, shouldn't have a platform. Okay? You need to be super careful here in distinguishing, hey, this person, if this is the only thing you knew about this person, what I would tell you is this is the game of what I said of, that is being very results oriented, which is it happened. There's a reason I've said it happened to be. I use this phrase a lot, right? That you're still at the red area. It happened to be. It happened to be that, oh yeah, you've had central bank coordinated, not only central bank, not just the US Fed, right? ECB, Bank of Japan, People's Bank of China, all driving down R simultaneously for decades. And oh yeah, as a result, then we got this, but you're still here, by the way, at the red arrow, all still intact. And now you can see the link here, and now why the complication, why I had the big long windup on how you got this kind of statement here at the beginning. By the way, here's your punchline. Same segment. Let's see, what time is it? 3:02. Look at this.
Oh, bond vigilante, this is the beginning of the end of the, U.S. As a real currency, then, you're crazy. Right?
Okay, so if interest rates don't matter, then there's no such thing as equity risk premium. This whole comparison framework is wrong. Don't talk to me about the equity risk premium. That's what he said, right? Don't talk about the equity risk premium. This is like invalid framework. Why are we now talking about interest rates? This person's not, this person can't go from show to appearance without completely contradicting themselves. Unimportant here. Now we're talking about it here. And there's you in the middle, kind of watching one segment, not watching all the continuation of the thing, not being able to fully say, hey, guess what? Something doesn't work here. Something's not right here. There's a reason I ask you to like and subscribe to Jay's Corner, right? Which is whoa, wait a minute. This is word salad here. This is something didn't work here. And if this were your only takeaway, your fragment of information, you're down some peculiar path, right? And you've accepted the result, and then which basically makes you fooled by randomness, which is still for me the most important book for anyone to read regarding any financial knowledge. Even more important than Maximize Your Medicare. Available for sale on Amazon for $11. It doesn't pay for this cup of coffee. It certainly doesn't pay for the mug. Forget that. I may even got the mug as a gift. So from there, that said, you do need to, that doesn't mean, stocks are a ripoff or too expensive, but then also you need to understand what is the inner workings here. And now we're going to get to the, and just to point this out. So what you have in equity markets is a strong equity market performance year to date. I don't think there's any question about that. Everyone kind of knows this. And then, so I've used stocks for show, bonds for dough. People to the corner understand this. Check out the newsletter on Substack. Stock for show, bonds for dough. There was a reason for that. Here it is, equity risk premium, right? We're going to have to understand interest rates first. And from there, therefore, you are not eating spoon with a fork. You now understand that, even though public messaging can be entirely against it. It exists, institutionalized. Happen to get lucky. Why? Because down in the lower left, right, the denominator directly down due to government government reaction to certain matters and ongoing systematic deflation from export of this deflation from China. There's a connection point to a bunch of these different tangents that look disconnected. They're connected, I promise. Thank you for those who have continued to stay here. 110, longer than I thought. Just understand, this is what you're doing here. You want to buy now, you are buying here. Where you peel the layer off the onion. Right? You're being told the equity market is up X%. 1/3 is coming from 1 out of 500. That's not to say that AI is not promising, right? There's not there's not 1 hour a day that while I'm working that I'm not considering something about AI. There's not 1 hour a day. Definitely not. But nevertheless, you just must understand, as you're taking the risk, as you're accepting the risk of what you are doing, juice worth the squeeze, that, oh yeah, by the way, that this person has told you ignore, that in fact, this is the fact. June 3rd. Whew, I'm exhausted. jo.com is the new website. You can see it there in bold here beneath the camera shot or the video. There it is. You can find out more about the way that I think. And, everything here on the corner, the news, the Substack is going to be consistent with what I've put there on the website. Kind of like the first place where I put it like an umbrella. Private content, that's secondary. It really is about you getting the right information first. The rest will follow. Hope you've liked and subscribed. Have a good rest of the